Welcome. Ghost hunting, getting started. Thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, thank you so much. I'm Tim Arnwine. I'm a retired paramedic turned ghost hunter and author. Currently, I'm a case manager for War Party Paranormal and an investigator, and I'm a co-founder of Ghostly Experiences, Inc. Now this week, we're going to be talking about the investigation, part 2. We're going to be talking about the day before the investigation and the day of the investigation. All right? So you got an investigation. Good work. Okay? What do you do the day before the investigation? Well, this is basically just confirmation and prep time. Okay? First, you need to confirm with the client, the address, the time of the investigation. Make sure everything's on track. Now, if this is a gated community, you need to find out the process. Is there a code to get in? Does the team need to look up a name on a directory? And what is that name? Okay? Now, you can also do something for your team at this time. If you're bringing out a full team, you need to find out the parking availability. Okay? A lot of small communities don't allow a lot of parking in the street. They have, visitor parking at other places, things like that. So find that out for your team and let them know. Now, once you have all this information, confirm the team, okay? And give them the information, the address, the time. But that's all. Don't give them the activity. Because remember, you want them going in cold. All right? So now you got the client confirmed, you got the team confirmed. So now it's just prep time. Does your equipment need charging? Does anything need batteries? And another thing you want to think about, if you've been doing a string of investigations, you need to make sure that your audio recorders and your camcorders, you got to make sure all that information is downloaded and empty, especially audios. There's nothing worse than showing up to an investigation with a full recorder. Because then you only have two options. You can either delete all the files, which could possibly be evidence from previous investigations, or you just can't use that recorder for the night. So just think about that. Okay? And then the last thing, you just want to check for supplies. Do you need more batteries? Do you need SD cards? Are you bringing water and snacks, things like that for the team? Okay? Just think about that. Okay? Now, the day of the investigation. Okay? These are just suggestions to help you have an honest and productive investigation. 1, which is the obvious, be on time. Now, if you're the team leader, you may want to show up a little early. Okay? When I show up early, I'll bring up my equipment. I knock on the door and let the client know I'm there. Now, I often tell the client, I'm going to go stand outside for a few minutes and wait for some of my team. So, I'm standing there. They're not just looking around for houses. It's easier for them. Okay? Now, when the team shows up, or some of them at least, let them know that you're going in to do a walkthrough and an interview with the client. Now, if you have a sensitive on the team, this is a good time to bring them in, because they can do the walkthrough and get a feel for the place. Where the really hot spots are, where you can set up the equipment. Now, while you do your brief interview with the client, try to keep the sensitive out of earshot, because you want them to be cold too. Now, the interview is basically just, are there any new concerns? Are there any new hot spots they're worried about? Okay? Now, while all this is going on inside, your team can be bringing their equipment up to the front door. Now, do the client a favor. Be discreet. Don't walk in like you're some strike force. Because you don't want the neighbors getting nosy and wonder what's going on at the client's house. And if you are asked by a neighbor what's going on, you can honestly tell them you're going to be doing some work in their house tonight and just leave it at that. Okay? Now, once the interview's done, you bring your team in, you introduce them to the clients, and you get kind of settled in. And then you ask the team to start setting up equipment according to the interview or what your sensitive thinks. Now, this is when the investigation starts. Because once you start setting up the video cameras, you got the right angle, you're in the right spot, everything like that, hit record. I'll tell you why. We learned a lesson. We got lucky, but we did learn a lesson. Years ago, when we were using video cassette tapes for our camcorders, we really didn't hit record until we were ready to go lights out. But one night we had a new guy with us, and he actually hit record right when he set up the camcorder. And we didn't realize it then, but when we were reviewing the evidence later, we realized he caught a full apparition within 5 minutes of hitting record. So, hit record. You may catch some activity that's being stirred up by all this new action, new people in the house, setting up equipment that they've never seen. So always hit record. Okay? Now you may want to have some of your team members do baseline readings. Now, baseline readings are basically you're going to get a picture of the environment, the location, things like that, prior to the investigation. You're going to be using temperature baseline readings, EMF baseline readings, and pictures. Okay? And all you really want to do is just what's going on when the lights are on, any spikes, any temperature changes, anything like that. As suppose when the investigation is going on, you can compare back to it. For example, temperature readings. Now, the best two devices to do for temperature readings are basically this. This is called an infrared thermometer. It's contactless. You point, you pull the trigger, whatever the laser hits, that's the temperature. Or you could use this. This is called a Mel Meter. Now, Mel Meters, a lot of people like Mel Meters because you can use it for both temperature and EMF. So now you're really carrying one device for two purposes. All right? Now, for temperature, you're really looking for something, something out of range, like at least +5 or -5 degrees. Okay? But since the lights are on, if you're doing a scan of the whole area, and then you catch, a difference, you could look around and see what's causing it. It could be an AC vent. Now, what's going to cause temperatures to have a drop in the range? It could be AC vents, fans, doors or windows in cooler months can cause that. Or it could be like a large, metal or stainless steel can cause lower readings, such as a big refrigerator, or if you're in a restaurant, the whole kitchen can be like that because everything's usually stainless steel. So the idea is that during the investigation, if somebody says, "Hey, we got a big drop in temperature," you can go, "No, we did that on a baseline. There's an AC vent above your head." It's just a way to have a way to compare and then debunk. Now, EMF, what you're looking for here are spikes. Now, 2.5 milligauss and below is normal. So anything really above that is considered a spike. So you're going to take these two devices. One is called a K meter. K meters will look at EMF fields and see if there's any difference. Or again, your Mel meter. Okay. Now what you're looking for are anything above 2.5 milligauss. So you're going to scan the area and see if there's any spikes. And since the lights are on again, you're going to be able to look around and see what could be causing that spike. What could cause spikes? It could be electrical outlets if there's a leak. Now, if there's a leak, they can figure that out later with an electrician coming in. Computers can cause spikes. Routers, cable boxes, AC handlers, breaker boxes, appliances. And remember, cell phones drive these things crazy. So just be aware that when you're investigating, if you have your cell phone on, remember it has to be a certain, few feet away so it doesn't set off, so you don't have any false EMF spikes. Okay? Now that's inside the house. Now outside the house, you could have a lot of things. You could have like motors that are lined up against the house. You could have transformers, power lines. A lot of water flow can cause EMF spikes, like rivers, things like that. So there's a lot of stuff inside and outside that can really cause EMF spikes. For example, we did a house once, and this couple, they said in this one area they felt funny, like they were being watched. Okay, and their whole entertainment center was there. Okay, now this was a wall with 2 windows. So when we did an EMF sweep, especially around the entertainment center, we got some big spikes. But when we looked outside, we realized that every motor was attached to that wall. The pull motor, the spawn motor, all the breaker boxes for that. So we simply just made a suggestion, maybe insulate or cover the motors or try to insulate your windows. And it seemed to help out a lot. Okay? Now, pictures during a baseline, you're just going to take pictures all over the place. Okay? And the reason you're going to make a visual record of what the location was before the investigation. So later on in the investigation, let's say someone takes a picture. Remember, it's dark now, and they think they see a shadow on their LCD, on their screen. But you go, no, we did that in the baseline. If you look closely, there's a big vase over there, so it might look like a shadow. So remember, all you're doing is just trying to get a picture before and during to see what you can debunk. Now, if you can't debunk it, then that's some evidence. Okay? Now, you got to remember, investigations are very fluid. Okay, it's not you put stuff in one place and that's it. You're stuck there for the night. The team's moving around. They're checking different areas. Equipment may have to be used in different areas if the activity shifts. Okay, so let's look at the tools very briefly. Just the tools you're going to be using for the investigation. Okay. Videos. Now videos, camcorders, some people use the little FLIRs, things like that. Like I said, hit record right when you set them up. Okay? Now, again, they may have to be shifted. It just depends on the activity. Okay? So if you got a camera or a camcorder, you think the batteries are low, and you have to plug it in, make sure where you go there's a plug. Okay? Now, this sounds silly, but it has happened many times. Okay, I've heard about it. It's happened to me, our team a couple times, but many times it's happened. I've heard. A lot of camcorders nowadays, they have the photo and the video option. So when you set up everything and you're ready to go and you hit that button, make sure it's for video. Okay, because you can come back 3 hours later and realize you didn't videotape anything, but you got one good picture. Okay, so just make sure. Now, if you're in a large location or a location with a lot of activity in different places, you may want to consider running a Dvr setup. Now, DVRs are basically, people have little bullet cameras, and they all can be monitored from one location. Okay, like a TV screen that you bring with you or a computer monitor, something like that. Now, if you're going to run a wired one, remember you're running cables per se. Some are up to 60 feet long. Be sure you tape them down and/or you point out where they are to the clients in your team because you don't want any accidental falls. Okay. Now, when you're placing the cameras, you're in someone's home or office, so you don't want to scratch anything up. So this is what I've done for years. I've always taken the camera and I'll Velcro it to a weight. And then I've put rubber on the back of it. Okay? So now the camera's stable. You don't have to clip it to anything. and now it's not going to scratch up anything. All right? Now remember, if you're running wired DVR setups, those cameras don't come with audio, so you have to lay down a recorder with it. Okay? Now, if you're going to run wired or not wired, remember everything feeds into a monitor. So it's a good idea to put a team member at the monitor, and they can monitor all the screens. And if something like hops up, they can let the team know. For example, they can say, "Look, I think I just saw a shadow in the kitchen." So just have someone at the monitor. All right? Now, pictures. When you're taking pictures during the investigation, it's very different from the baseline. Because you want to take pictures in succession, 1, 2, 3 pictures of the same shot. The reason for that is if there's like an anomaly or a shadow, it won't be there in the next shot. Okay? It's just a way to get evidence. If something was there, but it wasn't in these two, it's obviously something was there. So it's a piece of evidence. Okay? Now, another thing with pictures, if you're in a room with someone and they go, "Oh, I just felt something. I thought I was just touched," or "I feel a cold spot." If they verbalize something, start taking pictures of them. You may find something around them that's causing that. Now remember, if you're using like a camera phone or something with a white flash, you have the risk of getting false evidence, like false orbs, false mist, or false ectoplasm. Okay? Because what it is the white flash is bouncing off something, like the stainless steel. Or, I learned this the hard way. We did a house once, and I wasn't there for the walkthrough. I really wasn't even in this part of the house when the lights, when we went lights out. So I was walking up these stairs, and I just was taking pictures above my head, just shooting around. So when I looked at my screen, I saw a humongous mist. That thing, 10 feet tall, 10 feet long. And I was excited. But I had a guy with me, and I said, "Look at this." And he said, "No, man, that's something different. Here, I'll show you." So when I walked up the stairs finally, I realized there was like a closet inset into the wall at the top of the stairs. But this closet door, it was a whole hallway of them. They were all mirrored. So what I did when I took my white flash camera pictures, the flash hit a mirror of the door and shot it all the way down. So just be aware that white flash could give you false readings. Now, the tools. The tools, we'll talk about, we're going to really get into the tools, how they work and things like that. But just briefly. The tools, if you're putting tools down, like in an area to, see if there's any activity, something like a Mel Meter or a key meter, they're very light. You can pick them up and move them around. There's nothing wrong with that. If somebody says like, "Oh, we're getting cold spots in this room," you can pick these up and take them with you. But if they're laying in an area and you're doing an EVP session or you're trying to get a reaction, it's like I said before, show them how it's done. Because they've never seen a Mel Meter. So, hold their hand. If you want a reaction, show them how to do it. Okay? So literally you would just say, "Listen, I want a sign that you're here. If you come to this antenna and touch it, get near it, the lights go off and the alerts go off." So it's just another way for you to try to gather evidence. Let them know how to do things. Okay? Now remember what I've said before. You are your best tool, your immediate tool. Okay? So, and now you're running recorders, you got video going and everything. So use your tool. If you feel changes, like if you feel a cold spot or if you think you've been touched, verbalize it. Because now it's part of the record. Okay. Now, audio. Audio recordings, we're going to do a lot on that when we get into EVP sessions. But let's go over it briefly. When you're doing an EVP session, keep it to 2 minutes maximum. And the reason for that is that your playbacks will be quicker. And you never know, you may have caught a name or an answer to a question that you could build on. So keep them down to 2 minutes. People will run recorders for the whole investigation, and that's fine. You can review that later. But for your own personal, to get answers and to try to something to build on, keep them to 2 minutes. Now remember, the whole idea of an EVP session is to have a conversation. That's your goal. Okay? But you got to give them a chance to respond. In other words, you can't start an EVP session and go, hey, what's your name? Did you die here? Did you work here? You know my name. You can't, there's no room for them to respond, so you'll never know if they are. You're stepping on what they're trying to say. So just, ask a question. What's your name? Give it 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds to respond. Okay? Then ask another question. Okay? Now, recorders are all different with their lag time. So you play with your recorder. And it's obvious if you're coming in too soon, it'll be obvious when you do the playback. And just try to get a timing down for when you can ask the next question. Okay? And then when you're doing an EVP session, when you're starting one, ask people, to be quiet, we're doing some recording. But also tell them, if you need to talk, like if you need to verbalize something happening, please talk in your normal voice, your normal tone. Because if you're trying to listen to whispers when you're reviewing evidence, it'll drive you crazy because you don't know if that's someone of the team or an EVP coming in. Okay? And then also, verbalize stuff happening. Make it part of the record. If you're in a room doing an EVP session and someone is standing outside talking, verbalize it. Remember, you're walking in the dark. So if you hit something, bang into something, verbalize it. Okay? It just makes it easier for all your reviews when you're done. Okay? Now, ending an investigation. Now, there's really no set time frame for an investigation. Remember I said preliminaries can go 2 to 3 hours. That's true. You're just there to get a feel for the place. Full investigations or follow-ups, they can last several hours. So there's really no set time. It's like, the clock doesn't hit 4 hours and you say we're done. It could be, you could be getting a lot of evidence within the first couple hours, then suddenly it gets quiet. Well, you got a lot of evidence reviews, so maybe you can wrap up a little early. Maybe you already caught some answers, so you can wrap a little early. Okay? But before you do wrap up any investigation, remember, you got to investigate the less traveled areas, like the garage, walk-in closets, bathrooms, the attic, or basement if they have one. Reason for that is the ghosts might not feel comfortable with a big crowd. Especially a lot of people walk around, carrying new equipment, asking weird questions, things like that. So they might hide away. Okay? So always try to take you and maybe another person into these less traveled places and do an EVP session. Bring a Mel Meter or a K meter, things like that, and see if you can get some more responses. The whole idea is you want to give the client the idea that you tried your best, you hit every part of the house or the location to look for evidence and answers. Okay? Now, limit discussing any evidence with the client at the investigation. Okay? Because, you can honestly tell them, I don't know until we review it. Because you haven't really reviewed the video yet, so you don't know what's going on there. You need to take the audio back and maybe put it on some software. where you can loop it around and loop it and see if you can listen to it over and over and see what they're really saying. Because it's if you do share what you think, it might be a false negative. And that's really unfair to the client to leave them with a false negative, because once you hear it, it might not be a negative. So you've left them in limbo for a few days thinking that something really bad is going on in their house. So just limit discussing. Don't just say, we'll get back to you in a few days once we review the evidence. Okay? Now, if it's something obvious, like someone got scratched or someone got attacked, things like that, you can't hide that, because they're not blind, they'll know. And if you have someone on the team like a sensitive and an empath, or somebody who can do a cleansing, offer it. You'll say, we'd like to do a cleansing of your house or your location, and we'd like to offer a cleansing to you. Okay? The whole idea is you just want to be very supportive of your client throughout the whole process. And at the end of investigation, remember, you yourself, the investigator, you might feel a little uncomfortable. Like you think something might be attached, you don't want someone to come home with you. So if someone's doing a cleansing of the house, ask to jump in. Get a cleansing for yourself. There's no shame in that. Okay? So, just be there for them, and just, offer yourself to the client and say, if you need anything, please, give me a call if there's a change in activity or maybe an uptick in activity. Okay? And be very mindful that these clients are waiting for answers. Okay? You did the investigation. They're sitting there in limbo wondering what's going on in their location. So just, do your due diligence to really review the evidence and get back to them within a few days. Even if you haven't gone through it all, just touch base with them and say, we have, the video to go through still. Okay? But just, be mindful they are waiting for answers. Okay? Now, we didn't really get any questions and comments this week. So if you guys have any suggestions of what I can do different, I would love to be out in the field doing, investigations and shooting from there. But, Florida, we're just up. So the locations are, they're still locked down. So as soon as I can get out there, especially with the tools, I want to do, live shows to give you live demonstrations with the tools. But if you guys have any questions or comments about this segment, anything about ghost hunting, please send them in. Send them in to ghosthuntinggettingstarted@gmail.com, or you can send them by Facebook, which is Longhair Ghost Hunter, SOFL, or send them right into the channel. Okay, I look forward to hearing from you. As you know, we've been putting an EVP on the end of each show, just so you can get used to listening to EVPs and things like that. This week, we got a recent one. This one's from 2 weeks ago. I went down and did like a solo investigation with a bar with one of the family members, Linda. And during the day, Linda says asked for a Soraya. So I did. And we got a yes. Did you know Soraya? Yes. So this particular EVP, we're in the women's bathroom. Now the women's bathroom, literally, if you walk out, the bar is right there. You can see where everybody sits and things like that. So I asked, on this EVP, I asked something like, do you want to leave a message for Soraya? And I think it says, I love her. So listen to it. I'm going to keep it up. Let me know what you think. Remember, I told you got hearing matrixing. So you can hear something different. So let me know. And I have no qualms about people hearing things different. That's how I learn. That's how everybody else learns. Okay? So listen, next week we're going to be talking about reviewing the evidence. Okay, we're talking about how to review an EVP, how to review pictures, videos, things like that. Okay? So remember, the videos air on Tuesday. When we start getting back out in the field and doing investigations, I will announce those here or on the channel, on the Facebook. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And, if you're a subscriber, thank you so much. If you like the journey we're on, ghost hunting getting started, please subscribe. And please, check out my book, Ghost Hunting Getting Started. It's on Amazon. So if you're going out ghost hunting, be safe, be careful, good luck. And if you want to share evidence with us, please do. So we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Remember, videos are on Tuesdays. Anything live I will announce on this channel or Facebook. So thank you so much. You guys be safe out there and have a great day.
Give us a message to Soraya.